Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'll start by reading the webcasting meeting. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeated viewing, with copies of the recording being made available for those that wish to request it. By being present at this meeting, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data rights protection, and if you have any concerns, please speak to the webcasting officer. Please, could I also remind members and officers to activate their microphones before speaking and to turn them off afterwards. Thank you. If we go over to apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Apologies have been received from Councillor Markham and Baldwin.
Right. I understand there might be an apology for lateness or possibly absence for Councillor Holly Whitbread, who's apparently stuck up in London at the moment. Do we have any substitute members?
We have a substitute member. We have Councillor Matthews for Councillor Markham, and we've got Councillor Amos for the vacant Liberal Democrat seat on the committee.
Right, thank you. Good evening. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Bassett first.
Thank you, Chairman. Normal one, being Non-Executive Director of Qualis. Right. And also I'm Chairman of Community Transport, and it might come up under Health and Wellbeing.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Murray, did you have your hand up?
Yes, it might be subject to discussion under the budget. I'm a trustee of Epping Forest CA.
Right, thank you. The minutes of the meetings which were held on the 21st of November and the 12th of December, they're on pages 5 and 10. Can I accept those as a true record?
Agreed.
Everybody agree with those? Thank you. Matters arising and outstanding actions. I think on page 6 of the meeting of the 21st of November, there was some actions which have subsequently been dealt with. Is that correct, Laura?
The actions have been dealt with or are covered by the performance report, which is a substantive item on the agenda today.
Okay. Are there any public questions and requests to address the Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
No requests, Chairman.
Any executive decisions calling?
No executive decisions are calling.
Right, so if we move on to item 9, which is on pages 11 to 37, that's a corporate plan for the year 23 to 27, year 1, quarter 3 performance reporting. And that's on pages 11 to 37. And I think we've had some additions to that, haven't we, since?
There's a supplementary agenda which has got the additional performance information, which was released as soon as it was made available by third parties.
Yeah. I think, Charlotte, are you going to talk us through this? You're on the internet up there or down here?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to talk through the corporate performance report for Q3. So starting at page 11, is that correct?
Yeah, I think the actual
yes.
starts on page 14 of the actual.
14,
yeah.
Correct. So the report covers 2 sections. The first is updates against our corporate priority projects, and the second section of the report covers our KPI actuals and targets. So if I start at page 14, you have to let me know if there's any hands raised within the room.
Yeah, I think if we take the page at a time, and then I'll look round and see if anybody's got a hand up. Okay.
Lovely, thank you.
Right.
So are there any questions regarding any of the contents on page 14?
No, that doesn't appear to be.
Okay, if I move on to page 15.
No.
Page 16.
No. No questions on page 16, no.
Page 17.
Looks like another clean bill of health.
page 18.
Yes, there's Councillor Bassett has got a question.
Yeah, this one is just a clarity, because I'm looking at work stream 3 about the dust vehicles, and it says vehicles were ordered February 24, and obviously we're not even in February yet, so it's only a little point.
Just referring back to that point, so the section that's written under is kind of upcoming milestones or target dates. So that's outlining that the vehicles, I believe, will be ordered in February 24. Not that the orders, that the vehicles have been ordered yet.
Yeah,
obviously this relates
just
to
seeing it says
Q3.
ordered.
Yeah, I think James Warwick who's, wants to say something about that. Do you want to come in, James?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to emphasise what Charlotte's already said, yeah, that obviously we're not in February, so they haven't been ordered, but they're on target to be ordered, the orders to be placed in February.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're on page 19 now.
Okay, any questions on page 19?
No?
No? Okay, page 20?
No, don't appear to be any questions.
Okay, page 21?
No?
Page 20, moving on to page 22, and this moves into our quarterly KPI reporting. Any questions at all on page 22 going into 23?
Well, Councillor Murray has his hand up, Charlotte.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise.
Oh, it's my turn, right. Sorry, I thought I heard Councillor Bassett. Yes, obviously I'm attracted by the red. Is this across the district that this is being affected, or is this kind of pockets of poor service by the contractor? Because I have to say, from my experience in terms of Loughton and the area I know particularly well, things seem to be going very smoothly. So I would just be interested in whether this issue that's outlined in the report is kind of affecting across the district in small numbers, or is it kind of certain locations and collection rounds?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I'll pass over to Jill Wallace, who's the Service Director for Customer and Community, but James Warwick might also want to come in on that too.
Certainly. Thank you for the question. So I think we're referring to page 23, where we this is under the overall customer satisfaction KPI for Q3, and we make reference to the availability of the stock of the waste containers. Can I just double check that's the point you're raising, Councillor Murray? Is it that particular piece of information?
Yes, that in particular, but also, I mean, has there been an improvement in the other issues as highlighted in the earlier quarters?
Okay. James, can I hand over to you on the specific question around the waste containers, and then I can pick up the secondary point? Is that okay?
Yeah. So the issue, I don't think is not widespread in terms of the bin containers. The contractor has not been maintaining adequate supply of bin containers. So where people have been requesting either a replacement bin or a new bin, there's been a delay because sufficient stock levels have not been maintained by the contractor. We're working to address this. It's affecting the whole of the district, but it's not huge amounts of properties. In terms of miscollections, performance has improved. I think if we go back to this time last year, I think we had a very good Christmas and New Year collection and catch up. we're seeing any miscollections that there are being completed by the end of the week. There are a few isolated individual pockets of properties that are still being missed, but again, we're working with the contractor to address that. So yeah, there has been a marked improvement in terms of the service that's been provided.
Okay. I think that covers pages 22 and 23, Charlotte. Oh, Councillor Bassett had his hand up, didn't realise that.
I'll remember to switch it off this time. Yeah, one of the things looking at this that I worry about, we have had lots of problems with Biffa over the last, shall we say, year or so. We are now looking at bringing this back in-house or to our own company. How confident are we that Biffa won't just sort of abdicate responsibility as we get nearer their cut-off date? Is there any penalty on them for not providing the service?
Yeah, there are penalties and conditions within the contract. We're working very closely with Biffa to maintain a good working relationship and ensure that the transition is as smooth as possible. So I suppose we're doing everything that we can, everything in our powers that we can, and at the moment, Biffa's performance, like I've said, over Christmas and the New Year, consistently over the last 6 months has improved, and there is a consistency now with better performance, and we hopefully that maintains. And as soon as any slight issues arise, we will look to address that as soon as possible and put in whatever mitigating factors and contingency we can.
Councillor McIver has a question. I'm not sure if that's for you, James.
Thank you, Chair. It probably will be for James. Yeah, I sincerely hope Biffa use their corporate responsibility and their own reputation would be on the line if they were to do that. But it's a very good point raised by Councillor Bassett. And similarly, my question really is, do we have a contingency plan should our own service perhaps not be able to get resources that we need with for various reasons? Do we have a contingency plan for alternative supplies that we may need to use for a short-term basis, for an emergency basis? And also, are we planning on an overlap between our service and the current service?
The contract with Biffa will cease providing a service on Saturday, the 2nd of November, and then the new waste company will start operating from the Monday, and that. Yes, we are contingency planning and putting things in place for every aspect of the waste service and the waste company. So yeah, lots of effort and work is going into contingency planning, including workforce, supplies, transport, to ensure that there's a smooth transition as possible and that there is no disruption from when the new waste company starts its operation.
Thank you.
Okay. For no more questions, we move on to pages 24 is the next page.
Yep. Any questions at all on page 24?
No, that doesn't appear to be.
Okay. And page 25?
No, doesn't appear to be any questions.
Okay. Page 26?
No, doesn't appear. No questions.
Okay, page...
Yes, sorry, Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor Murray's got in just in time.
I still haven't mastered how to mark something on my iPad. If this was a paper agenda, I would have highlighted it and put a red circle around it, so I tend to miss things. Quarter 3, community wellbeing, number of homelessness approaches, and we've told that we've got a 28% increase on the same period in 22-23. is that as worrying as it sounds when you read a 28% increase in homelessness approaches? What exactly does that mean in reality? Presumably that's put extra pressure on our services if we've deemed that we have a statutory duty.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I'm just wondering if Jill is best placed to respond back to this question.
Charlotte, I think Jennifer Gould wants to come in and answer the question.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see that Jennifer was there. Apologies.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, we are experiencing increases in the number of approaches, and you'll see there in terms of the numbers. So that increase represents the difference between, on average, of 54 approaches per calendar month the previous year, as opposed to 76 now. We have therefore had a sort of corresponding increase in the numbers in temporary accommodation, and are struggling to move people on as quickly as we would like. Having said that, some of the changes that we made last year to the allocations policy have paid dividends, and we are seeing some homeless families move on from temporary accommodation quicker under the revised allocation scheme than they were doing previously under direct let. So that in itself is a good thing and has mitigated some of the impact around those increasing numbers. But it continues to be an issue, and it isn't going away. We still have got funding for tackling rough sleeping, so we're using that to best effect, and we're also talking with our strategic health partners about how much more we can do around tackling some of the root causes of homelessness around mental health, for example, substance misuse, etc. There is also a sort of collective housing summit with North Essex councils coming shortly. We're all experiencing similar issues, so we are getting our heads together to discuss what those are and see what benefit we can bring working as a kind of greater collective, and that will be around things like joint approaches to the procurement of temporary accommodation, that type of thing. So there are lots of kind of things in the pipeline around it. Yes, I'm concerned, but I'm also fairly confident that we're trying as best we can to get ahead of the game and put some mitigating actions in place.
Okay, if we can now move on, I think we're on page 26.
Okay, any questions on page 26?
Yeah. Doesn't appear to be any questions, no? So 27?
27?
Councillor Murray.
Yes, this is just a general question, and it refers to all the sports centres. And I know it's not strictly within this quarter, but does any of the appropriate officers know whether our centres have had the normal January bounce in figures? Because if you don't get a bounce in January, you're not likely to get it in any other time of the year, are you?
James?
I think James Warwick can answer this question.
Yeah, and I can. Obviously, we're still in January, so it's early days, but early indication from Places Leisure is yes, this is referred to as the golden quarter, and early signs are that memberships are on the rise, and attendances and usage of the centres is going extremely well this month.
Okay, thank you. Page 27.
Any questions on page 27?
No, doesn't appear to be.
Okay, page 28.
I think that on this page, Charlotte, there's data still, we were waiting for it. It wasn't going to be available until the 19th of January, but there's a supplement to this, your report, and I'm not sure if that's covered on there.
I believe that one is. So that's the fitness membership for Q3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, so that one on the supplementary paper that we provided through, that information is reported now on that paper.
Perhaps if we go through this one first, then do the supplement afterwards, would perhaps be the easiest way. And then
Sure.
I think there may still be some things which are outstanding after that, but no doubt that will become apparent when we get onto the supplement, I hope.
any
It doesn't
questions
appear to be
apart
any-
from the missing data? on
Apart from
28,
that,
are
are
there
there any
other ones?
questions on page 28? Right, page 29. Page 30. Page 31. I had some questions about this one, Charlotte, which I think I mentioned at our pre-meeting, but perhaps you'd like to explain it to the rest of the committee. It's regarding the red figure of 80% when the target is 90. And I said it last week, I thought 80 sounded quite commendable, and I wondered if it should have been in red. And likewise, over the page, is even higher score, I think, an 88% where the target is 90%. I just wonder if you could perhaps talk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. The targets that are set are statutory targets, so they're not council-led targets, I believe. However, I will say that in the supplementary paper that's been submitted, where we didn't have the Q3 data at the time, where we do now have it, those targets have been, whilst they haven't reached their actuals, the target set, they have been marked as amber. I don't know if Nigel wants to add any additional information onto that about the RAG status that's been applied against them.
Do you want to add something to that, Nigel?
Well, I can do, yeah, no problems. I mean, first of all, on the major applications, you can see that's 100% green, so that's a fantastic performance by officers. On the next two, yeah, they're showing as amber. So the minor applications, which is 80% performance against a 90% target, I agree. I think it's a good performance, but as you know, we set our standards quite high. At the moment, that's looking quite a challenge, and the reason for that is because we have had staff departures. We've also had to bring some agency staff in short notice to plug that gap, but even some of those have not stayed either. And then on the other category one, where the performance is 81% against a target of 90, that has been falling, as you can probably see. Q1 was 88%, Q2 is 84%, Q3 is 81%. That's disappointing, I've got to be absolutely honest, because that's mainly the householder type applications. But we have got this quarter to try and turn that around. And again, unfortunately, staff departures has impacted on that. But I can answer any other questions if members have any.
Councillor McIver, you have a question?
Thank you, Nigel. I just think it's worth recognising that in the backdrop of all that, your team have performed exceptionally well, and I appreciate there's just a few percentage points below the target, and I think it just should be recognised that in those circumstances, it's to be recognised really as an achievement as opposed to a failure in a sense. I don't like the red colour. My question really was, have you noticed with sort of the increased remote working now, has that improved efficiency and supported your team with examples of agency staff and of course people departing? And is there anything further we can do as a council to support your department when you are so challenged at a very busy time as well with the local plan?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I mean, I'm not sure if you've got the supplement in front of you, because obviously there's the up-to-date information there. Perhaps what I was going to say, which is in the supplement, the government agency, the Planning Advisory Service, are coming in this Friday, spending a day with us to look at performance, but also looking at our planning processes, committees, delegated, a whole raft of things, and some members have been invited to attend that meeting. So what I'm hoping is we could hopefully make some further transformation improvements once we've met with them and they've I'm assuming they're going to provide a report to us, which members will scrutinise. So I think in short, the answer is working from home. I don't think that's really impacted. What we have encouraged is the development management team to come into the offices once a week to sit as a team and work together. I think at the end of the day, we perhaps need to tighten up on managing some of this work. And hopefully we've got a new service manager in Graham Courtney. He replaced Andrew Marks. And I'm fairly confident that we will see some further progress. But thank you for your kind comments. It was much appreciated.
Right, I think I have a question from Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Nigel. You said that agency staff have been brought in because of the shortage of people to determine the applications. Are these sort of local people, and what sort of orientation do they have? Because we sometimes are concerned that the officers don't really, who are the planning officers, don't really know the area, some of the things they write in the reports and so forth. And it is concerning if the officers are doing it, don't really know the area and don't know the sort of the ethos of the village that they're reporting on. Just a bit more information that would be helpful.
Well, if you can show me where there's some local planners and point them in my direction, I'll gladly take them on. I mean, the honest answer is not many of them are local. What I would say is, well, you know, I'm relatively local. A few of the other team members are as well. But yeah, agency staff is very, very difficult to get somebody who's local. So no, they're not. You know, they do come with experience. You should be able to work really in any local planning authority. I know there's an advantage in having local knowledge, but at the end of the day, we shouldn't be just concentrating on local people, even though I agree there will be a bonus, but they should be able to be local planning authority.
Okay. I think we're on to page 33, Charlotte.
Okay, any questions on page 33?
No.
No. And
Page 34.
34?
No. 35. No, don't appear to be any questions.
Okay, 36?
36. No.
And I believe
37.
37, I think that might be the last page, yes.
Right. Now, perhaps if we can move on to the supplement. I don't know if members need a minute or two to find this, if they've got it at hand. If you've got it on your computers, it might be a bit of shuffling around. So if we perhaps, if everybody's ready, we'll start on the supplement.
Okay, I think we go straight in at page 2.
So it's page 2. Any questions on that? No. Page 3. No. Page 4. No. Page 5. No, don't believe there are. Page 6. Councillor Murray.
Do I assume that the 2 yellow lines where it says data not available, the explanation that's given at the top of page 7, no, it can't be, because that's to do with housing management. So why isn't data available for contracts, wastes and reduction in, you know, why it says data not available but doesn't give us an explanation for why?
I think James Warwick, can you answer that?
Yeah, there's been a delay with County Council verifying the data and us being able to access it. We're hoping that data will be available at some point this week. We are chasing it, so our intention would be we would include the data with the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm happy to take an action away to update this and resend that through for publication.
Okay, thanks very much. Page 7. No. Is it? And page 8.
No.
No questions, no. And finally, page 9. No. So I think that's covered that item, Charlotte. So
Lovely. Thank you ever so much.
I
Chair.
guess
Thank
you're
you.
free to go unless you want to stay around and enjoy
Thank
the
you,
rest of the
appreciate
meeting.
it. Thanks ever so much.
Okay. Right. I think item 10 is the next item on the agenda, but if I can just get my act together here. Item 10 is the Q3 budget monitoring report, and it says report to follow, but in fact, as I understand it, hasn't followed, and we're still waiting for it. Have you got a comment to make on that, Andrew?
If I may, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think we desperately aim to try and produce this report so it could be in front of the committee this evening, but just given the length of time following the quarter end, which is obviously 31st of December, Christmas break and the publication of papers deadline, it just wasn't enough time to put it together and to verify it before this meeting. So it'll come forward to the next meeting of ONS committee. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Councillor Murray.
I mean, that's a perfectly a reasonable explanation. There's not likely to be anything in it that would impact the next item, would it? The planning for the budget of next year. There's not going to be any surprises in the budget monitoring report for this year.
Councillor Phillip.
Councillor Murray, no, we will make sure that everything that's within the Q3 monitoring report is fully factored into the budget by the time we get to Cabinet at the beginning of February. I expect, actually, Mr Small, we will probably bring the budget monitoring report to Cabinet as well in February. So you'll see it's a matter of days. So there will be changes, obviously, as a result of outturns, but that will be factored into the budget when we discuss it at Cabinet.
Okay. If we can move on from that then. Now the next item is item 11, and we're actually going to leave that till last, as I understand it. Mike, you got this right?
Can do if you want to
So we're going to combine that with what is will be item 16, and the reason for leaving it to last is that there are some issues which we may need to discuss in private, but as I understand it, that the hope is that we'll be able to get through that without doing that unless anybody asks a question which might be particularly sensitive. So if we can agree to hold that back until later in the meeting. Because have I understood that correctly?
All the papers are contained in that one supplementary.
Yeah, that's right. You've got the supplementary agenda which has actually replaced the original item 11. So you've got a fresh one for that, and that's on pages 3 to 54. So I hope you're all up to speed on that and can find that. So if we leave that till later, we can move on to item 12, which is the overview and scrutiny committee work programme, which is on pages 49 to 52, which is of course this committee. I'm assuming that everybody's looked at it. I just wonder if anybody's got any questions about it. If not, we can move on to agenda item 14, which is the 2 scrutiny committees. Yeah. Well, if we move on to agenda item 13. So there's again reports, the Community Select Committee and Councillor Patel is the chairman. Do you have anything to say on that, Councillor Patel?
I've got a report to give you, Chairman. I'll give the committee. It's quite a lengthy one.
Is it? Well, what time are you going to be here tonight?
All right. My committee met on the 16th of January and we continue to make good progress against the work programme. At that meeting we had 5 substantive items for scrutiny by the committee. we took the HRA business plan first, and this would require 330 million over the next 30 years. Details of cash flow projections and the interrelationships between rent, repairs and maintenance were covered in the presentation. The housing stock survey had been an important aspect of developing the bespoke model, and members of the committee felt that this was a safe and prudent HRA business plan. The committee will commend to Cabinet for approval and have requested an annual update for inclusion in the security work programmes. The second item was Qualis Property Solutions provided the 23-24 year-end performance and business update. It was encouraging to see the achievements and improvements made and the improved customer satisfaction and independent assessment by Housemark. An outline of the proposals for the next 12 months was given, including an increase in funding for the community investment pot of 30k. The third item was the draft consideration of the damp and mould policy. Was consideration of the condensation, damp and mould policy, which covered the causes, impacts and effects of damp and mould. This is an important policy in light of the tragic death of Awab Ishaq, who died at the age of 2 in December 2020, as a direct result of exposure to mould in the social home his family rented in Rochdale. It was positive to see such a timely response with the policy, and this was commended to Cabinet for approval. Consultation on Awab's law ongoing, and a link for this will be placed in the members' bulletin for their comment. The fourth item was the home ownership strategy from 23-24 to 28-29, and that covered the sale of council residential properties, the calculation of and collection of service charges from our leaseholders, the provision information to solicitors and supporting consultation for planned works where needed. The committee welcomed the report, acknowledged that it was good practice to have home ownership strategy and recommended this to be approved by Cabinet. And the fifth item we discussed, or we considered, was the independent living for older people in Epping Forest strategy. This highlighted that the council was the largest social landlord in the district, providing homes for 11% of households and managed 12 independent living schemes. The strategy was also recommended for approval by Cabinet. We have 2 more scheduled meetings of this civic year, one on the 5th and one on the 19th of March. And the meeting on the 19th of March is going to be dedicated to the Community Safety Partnership. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for that report. It's quite a long report. I just wonder if it's possible to include that in the minutes.
It will be included in the minutes.
I think that'd be helpful. All right, Councillor Murray, you have a question. Yeah,
points, please, Chairman. I'm on this scrutiny committee. First point is the importance of the discussion and the item, and the Chairman has given that due emphasis, and that was the issue of the damp and mould policy on the forward plan. Very good policy, very well laid out, very well explained by the officer. I'm sure it's going to be adopted by the Cabinet, but what we will want to do as a committee, I'm sure, is really monitor how well that is in action, because that's what really matters. And then the other point, which I've been thinking about making for a while, and I don't wish Councillor Patel any harm, but I want to just say how well I think he's doing the job as chairman, because I was a bit suspicious to have a member of the Cabinet move seamlessly over to a scrutiny role. Didn't kind of sit well with me, but I think he's doing a very good job. So I'm sorry if that's done him any harm, but that's my opinion.
Right, I don't know if members have got any other questions. The actual report is on pages 53, 54 and 55. That shows the work programme. If members have got any questions, speak now, or we'll just move on. Okay. Now we've got the Place Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Helen Kane, and that's on pages 56 and 57. Have you got anything to say?
Thank you, Chairman. I will be very brief. Yeah. Our meeting was actually cancelled, so I don't have to report anything. Okay. And the next one will be 27th of February. Right. Thank you.
Are there any questions that members would like to ask Councillor Kane? No? Okay. So having dealt with that, I think the next item is item 14. This is Cabinet business, the forward plan, which is on pages 58 to 65. I don't know if we want to go through this a page at a time. I'm quite happy to do that if members wish to do it. So if we start on Councillor Janet Whitehouse, no question.
Chairman, I think the point of this item is that we can ask for things to come to the Scrutiny Committee. I just wonder what Fit for the Future covered and whether there were things there that should be coming to Scrutiny. And I just want to say how pleased I was that a number of the strategies I mentioned have already been to Scrutiny, because a while ago we weren't doing that, and it's good that they do come to Scrutiny first before they go elsewhere. Thank you.
Are there any issues that you wish to raise in that respect? Yeah.
What does Fit for the Future cover, and is this something that should be coming to Scrutiny at some point?
Right, Georgina, have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Whitehouse. Fit for the Future Transformation Programme is due to come to Cabinet, next Cabinet, as an outline programme, and in there it talks about member engagement, consultation and building that programme together. Hope that's helpful.
Yes, do we want to go through this a page at a time? If members want to do that, they can ask any questions. So if we start on page 59, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. Presumably something that's exercising quite a few members' minds as they're trying to get their head round these new ward boundaries. How would, we've got here item 3, interim and polling districts as a result of the boundary review, and I think I remember the answer from a previous meeting that we weren't going to change the polling districts because it was confusing enough that the wards were changing. So my question is to the leader or to the appropriate officer: how do members access information about the polling districts within the new wards and the polling stations that they're going to be using? Is that available in a central place? Has that been published, or do we have to go through the elections officer?
Did you want to answer, Councillor?
I was going to throw it over to an officer to answer, actually.
All right. Perhaps as you've just arrived, I should ask you if you've got any declarations of interest.
None.
All right, thank you.
I think the elections team would be more than happy to answer any questions you've got about the polling district arrangements under the new wards. So I'd go through them, be my advice.
I understand that Paula McGuinness, did you want to say something on this, Paula?
Only that we are starting to undertake a review of the new polling stations, but certainly I'd echo Andrew's answer that for now to go through the elections team, and I'll certainly take back and ask the question about where that can be accessed for all members.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So page 60, do you have any questions on that? Page 61. Page 62. Page 63. Page 64. And page 65. Right. So that concludes the Cabinet business and the forward plan. We now go back to the combined agenda item 11 and 16. And I think I've going to ask Andrew to...
Can I ask Councillor Phillip to come in first?
Oh, Councillor Phillip, you're going to speak first?
Thank you, Chairman. Before I hand over to Mr Small for the highlights of this report, I've got a small announcement to make. Members, I'm excited to share with you a major development concerning the land at North Weald Airfield. I'm delighted to confirm that the Council has successfully completed the sale of a significant portion of this land, 52 acres to be precise, to technology company Google for a potential data centre. This marks a major milestone on our district's journey towards innovation and economic growth, aligning with the Strategic Master Plan's conclusion that the site is well suited for this development type due to its location within the UK Innovation Corridor. The potential that this development brings is immense, not only in terms of advancing our digital infrastructure, but also in generating high-quality, well-paid employment opportunities and bolstering our local economy. Extensive consultation with various stakeholders and groups was pivotal to the adoption of the Strategic Master Plan in March last year. While we're eager to share more details, it's important to note that Google does not have a confirmed timeline for the development. We're hugely optimistic about Google's plans and its role in our vision for a sustainable and prosperous Epping Forest. The bit that comes after that is clearly that will have an impact on the budget as we go forward. We haven't yet been able to factor that into this meeting's report, which Mr. Small will take you through shortly, but it still serves the same purpose. We have a structural deficit in our budget at the moment. We cannot solve that simply by selling assets, not to mention that when you sell an asset you get a capital receipt. You cannot use that for a revenue part of the budget. Mr. Small, Mr. Hartgrove and I are working hard to make sure that when we come to Cabinet at the beginning of next month, we'll have been able to factor in some of, or hopefully all of the implications of what I have just said. I'm happy to take some questions, but do note that I have got very little more that I can actually say to you because of the situation with Google not yet having a confirmed development timeline.
Councillor Helen Kane, I think you have a question.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment that this is a very encouraging and welcome news, and thank you very much for letting us know.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Hadley, I think you're first.
Thank you, Chair. Question for Councillor Phillip. Is this a complete and assured sale, or there is any back-out clauses?
I'm happy to assure you, Councillor Hadley, that the sale has completed.
Councillor Murray?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the thanks for the update, and that is really excellent news. It's clearly the type of company we want to attract into Epping Forest and everything it stands for and its values. Have we got any indication at this early stage what the employment possibilities are in terms of either numbers and skill levels?
We do not at this stage because they haven't got the plans in place. However, we do know that if you look at the sort of company Google is, it's likely to be skilled jobs in general. It is a data centre, so there won't be as many as there would be in some other employment uses on the site, which is why when I brought forward the original proposal to sell, I was making it very clear that the other part of the land allocated for employment development, which is not involved in this, is something we'll be looking at to make sure that we get a better number of jobs. And a good mix between number of jobs and quality of jobs, I think, is something that will improve the district. It'll be really good for the whole district, and it'll be great for the area around North Weald.
Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I share the views of the other councillors. This is very good news. And only this week it was announced that Google are going to have a massive development in Waltham Cross. So no doubt the two could well be working together. So thank you for letting us know.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. I never thought I'd get to say this in the council chamber, but mine's bigger.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I think we can move on to item 11, which is combined with item 16, and that's in the supplementary draft budget on pages 3 to 54 in the supplementary agenda.
Thank you.
Andrew is going to talk us through it and explain it all to us.
Thank you, Chairman. So this paper brings forward an important part of the overall budget development process. So this brings forward Cabinet's draft budget proposals for 24-25 for consideration by Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So the paper which is attached as part of this agenda was considered by Cabinet on the 18th of December and is attached in its entirety as an appendix to this report. That report presents the revenue budget for the General Fund, for the Housing Revenue Account, the Capital Programme, and then the medium-term financial plan. If I can take those in turn in terms of introduction. So I think the first thing to say about the General Fund budget, which is attached as Appendix A to the Cabinet report, is just how difficult a year it's been in terms of balancing a budget. The budget target that we needed to identify for savings was £3.7 million, and that comes on top of a saving of £4 million from 23-24 last year. So the £7.7 million over 2 years combined, and that's on a net budget of £17 million for the council. So it is not by any measure inconsiderable, and is a reflection, I think, of the pressures which are facing councils up and down the country, and many of you will have seen in the newspapers, so you know how difficult that is in terms of councils trying to balance their budgets. A lot of that pressure is driven by inflation, as we all know that the inflation increased rapidly and has had a big impact upon the cost of the council's operation, including on pay, but also on some of the council's contracted costs as well. So our waste costs, for example, are a considerable element of the overall pressure that the council is facing. And there are reports, as I say, in the national media about 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 councils potentially facing bankruptcy, I think it's termed out, but issuing a Section 114 report. So it's not limited, I think, just to this council. It's a situation which applies across the whole country at this moment in time. And in facing the challenge that the council has in front of it, we need to identify a solution which is sustainable. So that's finding savings which don't ultimately rely on an annual cuts exercise. So we need to find a more sustainable solution to balancing the budget into future years. The budget also can't rely on windfalls, and Councillor Phillip mentioned about a capital receipt. We need to make sure that our income matches our expenditure first and foremost. And if we have fortunate enough to have a windfall receipt, then that gives us added opportunity. But being sustainable and living within our means is central to our the overall budget proposals in front of you. So the budget package that's in front of you has been developed over many months, going back into the middle of last year almost, really. Officers working closely with their respective portfolio holders, bringing forward reports to Cabinet and to Overview and Scrutiny as well. I'm not going to go over or repeat the core assumptions that are contained within the budget proposals. They are laid out within the budget proposals, but they've also been the subject of reports to ONS in previous occasions as well, so they were considered in October in some detail. But that October report identified a budget gap of £3.7 million that needed to be closed in order to balance the budget. And the paper in front of you actually sets out the proposed solution to that, which brings forward a balanced budget and eliminates that £3.7 million worth of budget gap. But in order to find or identify savings of £3.7 million, it does require difficult choices. And as you'll be aware, Cabinet jointly consulted with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in early December around some of the choices they had available to them to try and get a steer from Overview and Scrutiny Committee about which ones should be included, and if there was any opportunity to rein back on some of those choices, which ones would be the preference of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So I can say that the papers in front of you this evening, presented to Cabinet on the 18th, reflect that conversation or that meeting, and the choices that Overview and Scrutiny Committee identified are reflected in here in whole or in part. But as was made to that committee meeting, many of the choices in front of the Council at this point in time are not choices that we would necessarily rush to take, and I think that's fair to say. But we can't ignore the challenge facing the Council, which is to present and agree a balanced budget. So that does mean difficult choices to be made. I would say that many of the councils that now appear in the national media have been councils that have failed to take some of the difficult choices that they were required to take. And I can say that this council isn't one of those really, because it has brought forward a package of difficult choices which balances the budget. Those savings were set out to the Cabinet Committee in a confidential appendix because it was a long list of savings, some of which were operational and non-staff related, but some of which were staff related as well. And we thought it important in terms of formulating the budget proposals, this consideration stage should be done confidentially where it involved impacts upon staff and staff posts. There was some conversation about that. This paper splits that appendix between appendix now FI, which is in the open session, which is non-staff related savings, and appendix FII, catchy title, which is the staffing savings, which still remains in confidential session. And I would remind members, if they want to comment upon any of the savings contained within that confidential appendix, that we all need to go into closed session to discuss those. But they have all been in front of this committee anyway, and hopefully any answers sought will have been delivered when that first paper was discussed in early December. So the budget paper in front of you includes a list of savings totaling £3.7 million. It also includes a council tax increase of the maximum percentage increase of 2.99%, which is £4.86 per year on an average Band D property. And will increase, if accepted, will increase the council's Band D council tax from £162.15 to £167.01 for a Band D property. Moving on to the housing revenue account, I can tell you which is attached as Appendix B. So the housing revenue account budget there includes the results of the completed stock condition survey, which was a survey of about half of the council house properties. That identified the need for further investment in repairs and maintenance, and particularly around some of the net carbon zero works, in fact £15 million worth of works over the MTFP period. It also includes a rent increase of the government's permitted maximum, which is CPI at September plus 1%, which equates to 7.7% in total increase. But all of the benefit of that rent increase is, of course, retained within the housing revenue account and spent on housing activities such as repairs and other related issues. There is a net forecast deficit for the year of £465,000, but even factoring that in, the balance on the housing revenue account remains above the minimum target balance for that account and sits within the overall context of the 30-year business plan, which maps out the financial sustainability of the housing revenue account over that 30-year lifespan. Attached as Appendix C to that Cabinet report is the capital programme, which is an integral part of the overall budget package, because we need to understand what the capital programme is so that we can build the financing cost of that capital programme into the revenue budget. So the two need to come together so they are consistent. I shan't dwell on that in great detail, but the programme rolls forward the capital programme by a further year, and the General Fund capital programme amounts to £61.8 million over the capital programme period. The Housing Revenue Account capital programme is also contained within those papers, and that amounts to £140 million over that same capital programme period. And as I said, in the Housing Revenue Account revenue report, the Housing Revenue Account capital programme also reflects the impacts of the findings of the stock condition survey. Moving on to Appendix D, which sets out the medium-term financial plan for the Council. So, as I say, when you're looking at the General Fund revenue account, the October report update identified a gap between our expenditure, which was £21.4 million for 24-25, and predicted income of £17.6 million. So clearly the Council is spending more money than it projected to receive, and that's why it's important to find total savings which closed the gap. And I think, I know this budget presents a balanced position. So the medium-term financial plan presents a balanced budget for 24-25 with tough choices included. But even after 24-25, there is a further £3 million worth of savings to identify over the remainder of the medium-term financial plan period in order for it to balance. And it's important, I think, that we don't end up in an annual cuts exercise, to have, therefore, a sustainable strategy developed which addresses the budget gap that's forecast with longer-term sustainable financial solutions. And that is what Fit for the Future is about, and that's what the report to Cabinet in March will set out in more detail. Finally, the Housing Revenue Account also presents a balanced position across the whole of the MTFP period, and indeed the 30-year business plan period as well. Housing Revenue Account minimum balances are £2 million, and we currently have about £4 million. So there's opportunity to use some of those balances to smooth out some of the fluctuations from year on year as well. But overall, the budget papers present you a balanced budget solution, and that's probably all I needed to say in terms of the papers in front of you. I don't know if Councillor Phillip would like to add anything to that. Thank you.
Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr Small, for that detailed presentation of the budget. As you can tell, a significant amount of work has gone into this, and although we've got just over a month left before full council, there's a lot more work that we need to put into. Realistically, however, this is around the last chance for you to have a significant input. Once we get past today, it's not possible to take significant changes in and continue to produce a budget that actually, as the Section 151 officer, Mr Small, can say that he's confident that it's a balanced budget. This is not, and I've said this I think every time I've come here, it's not purely a stamping exercise. I'm here to listen. We've got work to do. What we listen to will help us to factor in where we're going. You do still have another opportunity to comment when we get to Cabinet in February. But I'm hoping that what you'll have seen this year, as we did, I think we've done it actually even better than we did the year before, a gradual evolution of where we're going with the budget. We've tried to be as transparent as possible. Obviously, we couldn't factor in my previous announcement until such time as it was in the bag. It's very nice to think you've got money coming, but until you've actually got it in the bank, you cannot build a budget on that basis. As Andrew was alluding to, we have a structural deficit in the budget, a significant structural deficit. We need to make the changes to fix that structural deficit. What the receipt from our capital sale may give us the opportunity is to reschedule some of those slightly so that they don't come in with such a bang. So I'm looking more for what we're getting in from the sale to make it possible to make the decisions happen at the right time rather than having to do it at a particular time to balance the budget. I do not want to start spending that money to cover everyday running costs. That is not a way to be a successful council. That's what's got other councils into trouble. We need to make sure that we have a balanced budget. We need to do that. We need to make some pretty difficult decisions, but we will get there, and we will be in a position, I think, when we come both to Cabinet in February and then finally to full council, that we can bring forward a balanced budget that does give us what we need to set this council up to be going forward. And just purely to put it in context, Andrew talking about the rise of 2.99%, it's effectively 9p a week. Chairman, I think both Mr Small and I are happy to take questions. I have my Cabinet colleagues here, if there's particular ones around their particular portfolios.
One question that comes to my mind, you announced the good news earlier. Is that money from that sale coming forward immediately, or is it something that won't be in for a few months, so it won't affect this budget?
Chairman, as I said to the councillor earlier, the sale has completed. Mr Small persuaded me that I didn't want to put it down the back of my sofa, so it's in the council's bank account.
Right, okay. Right, Councillor Murray, you've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I have got some points I want to make on the general fund, but I thought first of all I would start on the HRA, and it's really a question. And it's around paragraph 5.3 on page 30, which outlines the increase in rent. I'm assuming that this is we're going for the maximum that the government allows us to. So is it best if I break down my questions singly, or do you, because there's about 3 or 4 of them around this issue. So are we doing what the government is saying that we can do to the maximum?
Yes.
I actually discussed this with Andrew before the meeting, so I think Andrew can answer the question.
Yes, simply it is. So there's the government going to recommend a maximum level, really, and same with council tax to an extent, really, and we're in order to protect services and to stock condition survey identifies a significant amount of works that need to be done to the housing stock, and we want to make sure that as much of that work is done as possible, which means increasing rents by as far as we can. But all of that money gets retained within the housing revenue account, of course, and for the benefit of tenants.
Answered my next question then. The only way we could reduce that rent increase is by cutting maintenance levels, which is something that we wouldn't want to do. 2 things that I don't think are touched on here, but I just wanted it confirmed. A very high percentage of our tenants, and if you happen to know the percentage, that would be great, are on housing benefit. Is that correct, and what is the rough percentage? And would I be right in thinking that the housing benefit is a payment directly from the government towards that?
So, yes, we have a significant number. I don't know if Ms Gould knows the actual percentage, but it's a fairly high percentage. You're correct there. And yes, the money does come to us. I think just following up a little bit more on what Mr Small said earlier, we know from a couple of years ago where the government forced a lower rent increase than was expected. That has a carry-forward effect on the HRA for many years into the future. And as we discovered at Scrutiny last week, it's important that we get our properties to the right standard. And that's part of why we're doing this, is so that we can actually afford to fund that.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I go on to the general fund now? Yep, okay. I mean, I'll keep my remarks fairly precise, and I really only have 2 areas of real concern that I'm personally. I mean, I know it's the committee to decide, but I would personally ask the portfolio holder and cabinet to have another closer look at. I completely understand the legal requirement to set a balanced budget, and have no difficulty with understanding that and the need to do that. I think living within your means is a good practice for local authorities, for businesses, and I might say for individuals as well. You cut your cloth to what you can afford. Now, I've looked really carefully at F1, and a lot of these I find really difficult to go along with, but I take the view that we don't have any alternative. One that I will support that is controversial and I know has upset a few people, and I am just trying to just absolutely double check that it is in the public bit, because I want to keep to the spirit. And can I first of all thank you for doing what, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who suggested it, though I'm the only one who probably suggested it publicly. I do think this was the split we should have had at our last meeting, but we are where we are, and I think to have the split like we have today, this in public and the other bit not, is good. So thank you for doing that. The one I am prepared to go along with is the ending of the police contract. I was a late convert to that service. Initially, for the first 2 years, I argued very strongly that the District Council was ignoring services that it was responsible for and going into providing services that we already pay a sizable police precept for. So for the first 2 years of this service, I wasn't in favour. I was won over because I saw the benefits of paying even more money towards policing in the area. Though I still feel that various services that could have been developed in this district wasn't, because we saw this as a priority. But given where we are now, I think sadly this is something we have to do. We're not the policing authority. The Commissioner has already done another survey so he can maximise the increase of his precept on the basis of about 80 returns. So we'll be paying another large increase on the police precept this year. Community policing will still continue. So I think this is one that I do feel able to support. Not willingly, because late converts are often the most zealots in defending things. But I think it makes sense. It's £180,000. Where are we going to find that? My final remark, Chairman, is on two relatively small cuts with very high impact levels that I'm not prepared to support. And if they remain in the budget, I wouldn't be supporting these elements of the budget in February. So I do ask the relevant portfolio holders and Cabinet to take another look at Epping Forest Citizens' Advice and Voluntary Action Epping Forest. We've all had the letter from Voluntary Action Epping Forest today. I don't think we actually, I'm not criticising them for sending it, I understand why they sent it, but I don't think they needed to send it for us to understand the importance that this organisation has in the whole range of things they do. And I think for £7,500 we are really jeopardising a lot of community value and capital worth in our local community. What was useful in the letter is that they've outlined the other pressures that they're operating on and the real impact that this relatively small cut for us would have on their future. So I did think that was important. So though I recognise some progress has been made from various options that we looked at before Christmas, I would ask for that to be looked at again. And then Epping Forest Citizens' Advice. They've had a standstill budget for 5 years, so they've just like Voluntary Action Epping Forest. So in any real sense, they've had cuts for the last 5 years as well, because they've been operating under the inflationary increases. This is going to have a devastating impact on the only independent advice service that we have in our district. The demand for citizen advice is going up exponentially, is that the right word? Yep, that's the one. So the demand is going up massively. They're providing a service that no one else can provide. They also generate a massive income into this district. I accept that it's not directly to the council, and I do understand that. But in terms of the benefit advice that they give to people, in terms of accessing the benefits that they should be accessing, they're I think in their annual report, and I was trying to get their annual report up, but I just couldn't find it. It's certainly well over £1 million, and it's probably higher than that, of money that they bring into the district for local residents. So I'm really not happy with those two. I've heard really carefully what the portfolio holder has said as regards the Google issue, and I do understand that that shouldn't be used to not implement difficult decisions. But equally, he did also say at the end, it gives us time perhaps for a little bit of breathing. And I certainly think these two organisations needed a little bit more time to plan the impact of what these cuts are going to be. So even if the Cabinet feels that they can't take them completely out of the budget in the future because of structural reasons, maybe the Google capital receipt gives us an opportunity to delay this decision for at least a year, where these two organisations can have a heads up about these cuts and have time to plan around it. And one final thing, because I understand I've spoken for a while now, yes, because it was brought up by the portfolio holder, yes, Epping Forest CAB have managed their resources really carefully because they're under pressure like every other organisation, and they have found significant savings by moving offices, but that's already been accounted for in terms of their delivery plans and what they're delivering already. So the argument that we can cut this and it won't have any impact on services just isn't accurate. I'm not saying it was said deliberately to spread a falsehood, but the savings in terms of accommodation have already been accounted for because they're under sound management, as Councillor Bassett is aware, and we've been aware of the pressures we're under, so we made that strategic decision and saving so that we could safeguard our frontline services. So if members do support this reduction, be under no illusion that it will have an impact on direct frontline services for our local residents. So I'm really asking, or making a really strong plea, is there any way that 79 and 80 could be looked at? The other ones I'm prepared to swallow and support, though like other members, they're difficult decisions. Thank you, Chairman.
So, Councillor Murray, are you asking support from the rest of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for what you've
Chairman,
said?
Chairman, if I could possibly come in here, why we're here tonight is we're listening to the views of Overview and Scrutiny. It doesn't need votes to say this is what we're going to do, because the way the budget's come forward at this stage, we need to have these savings to balance the budget. I've heard what Councillor Murray has said, both about the police and about the voluntary organisations. I do appreciate where he's coming from. It is something that I will look at going forward. At the moment, they're in the budget because we have to do that to budget it. There may be something that we can do, I don't know. But this is very much, tonight is, here's what we're planning to do. Give us your feedback. Allow us to go away and work forward. And what Councillor Murray has said with regard to the voluntary organisations is not different from what Councillor Murray said in December. which was also backed up by other members of Overview and Scrutiny. The key part, I think, which Councillor Murray is good enough to acknowledge, is that obviously we listened last time, and some of the potential impacts in the voluntary sector have been reduced. Obviously, we haven't gone as far as Councillor Murray would like. I went as far as I felt I could at the time. But here, I'm listening to it rather than you telling me what I have to do.
Well, no, I don't think we're saying what you have to do. We're aware of that. I think really what you're asking is that you will consider that in view of the earlier announcement that there may be scope to do a little bit more. That's
Chairman, I will consider everything that comes from Overview Scrutiny tonight.
Okay.
I do not promise to do everything that Overview Scrutiny want me to do, but I will consider it. I've got a record of coming here. I've listening to what Overview Scrutiny say and doing my best to try and get something that does the best for the people in the district. That's the underlying thing that we're doing here.
I'm happy with that, Chairman. I won't be pushing for a vote.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've got questions. The next person is Ian Hadley. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Before we get into further final detail, to reach this balanced budget, you have to make assumptions. Are those assumptions in line with other councils in a similar position?
Chairman, yes, for some of it. It's very difficult to come across a council that is in a very similar position to us. I asked a similar question around the state of our housing stock and costs around there, and was told basically there's few like us. In fact, if I was going to be particularly Scottish, damn few, and they're all dead. But it's almost impossible to find an exact exemplar. What the Finance Department has done is take assumptions that are developed through working with our advisors, with the experience that the Finance Department has, and that does factor in looking at what is happening elsewhere, particularly elsewhere in Essex that's around us, looking at what's happening. So, and it's also shown up actually in this, in the covering report. If you look in that carefully, what it says is that the settlement that came in from government at the end of December was more or less in line with what our assumptions had been. That gives us a reasonable degree of confidence that the assumptions that we're making are, by and large, as good as we're going to get.
Did you want to come in?
No, and just say that I think Councillor Phillips has made the points that I would have made, really. You know, we do sense check our assumptions with other colleagues in Essex, with professional advisors in the city, Bank of England assumptions as well. So, as Councillor Phillips said, really, no, we do sense check.
Right, the next name I have is Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to support what Councillor Murray said about citizen advice and BAF, and particularly if the cuts have to be made, that they can time to adjust, because it does take time to make a funding application and get the result, and they're not going to be able to do that in a sort of the time that they've been given. So just like to support that. I've got a couple of questions on items on the main budget paper on the main agenda. Is that all right to ask those questions now? So on page 43, there's a number of items about democratic services. Item 30 talks about the reduction of committee attendance. I just wondered what that meant and whether that's going to impact on our scrutiny committees. I know there's lots of sort of small committees that seem to appear on the calendar, but just wonder what reduction of committee attendance actually means. And they seem to be suffering a lot of removal of various things, their casual mileage, their travel expenses, their subsistence budget. It doesn't say reduction, it says removal.
I don't see anything on my page 43 that references committee attendance, so I'm on page 43, the supplementary agenda.
I did ask the chairman if I could refer back to that one. He said yes, but if you want me to hold those till later, that's fine.
I assumed that you were on the new agenda, but you're going back to the
I
old
went
one.
back, but at what point are we going to discuss? Are we going back to that agenda then to discuss these items? The detailed bits we want to ask questions on? You said you were going to listen to what we had to say, and I've got some comments to make on those individual items.
It's just a bit confusing if... yeah.
Councillor Whitehouse, the agenda item that appears in the original agenda, item 11, has been repeated. It's actually been included in the supplementary. So the aim of that was to avoid people having to flick between two agendas. So the supplementary agenda contains all the papers that formed part of the original item number 11. So I don't know if that helps.
Councillor White, do you want to find it on the...
Does it matter if I don't quote the actual page? What I'm asking about is the implication of reducing... It does. Oh, well, that's someone else's question, and I'll ask it. Oh, sorry.
I think if it helps, Chairman, is she not referring to a list of things that is now on page 43 under the portfolio customer and corporate support services portfolio? Is that not what she was referring?
Well, Andrew is going to hopefully clarify everything.
Sorry, without finding the exact page reference, I do know which savings you're talking about, and I can tell you that these are budgets that actually haven't been used for a while, which is why we feel that we can give them up easily.
Page 43. Yeah.
Chairman, I haven't got this in front of me, but I would have thought that Democratic Service staff who stay on in the evening need a subsistence budget. But I would be interested in the detail of the reductions, but maybe now isn't the time. And the other one I just want to comment on was the conference and courses for members. It's a well-kept secret. I think most of us didn't know it actually existed. So I'm just wondering how much money is left in that. Now we know it is actually there for us presumably to apply to.
There will be nothing left in that.
Okay. Is that... you finished now, Councillor Whitehouse? Yeah. Okay, next name I have is Councillor Helen Kane.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the portfolio holder and all the officers, because from the very beginning we knew it's going to be a very, very difficult budget. We were given the opportunity to discuss certain elements of it and all the stages that we went through, and I'm grateful for that because we made all our points, known to the cabinet, and we showed that we actually are all acknowledging the truth, the realistic. We have to be realistic and see that this is a very difficult budget.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Matthews, next on the list.
Thank you, Chairman. I just thought it was worthwhile to reiterate how important it is for us to distinguish the difference between the fantastic news of the Google sale and the task of balancing the budget. Obviously, while that's great news that money's coming in there, I think it's very, very important that all members have clear in their mind that if any business or council starts selling assets to cover operational costs, they are firmly placing themselves at the top of a slippery slide. So that is not what we want to be doing under any circumstances. In layman terms, we need to be covering our outs with our ins, and that's what we need to do. So that's why difficult decisions will need to be made. And it can't be looked upon, in my opinion, that there's a windfall coming in and that's going to help things or ease things. From my opinion, if an asset is being disposed of or sold within the district, 100% of that money needs to go back into the district in some form of investment in enhancing the district for our residents. Just want to make that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Phillip.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Matthews. I completely agree. The development of the local plan and the master plan for North Weald Airfield was very clear that there's something that we want to do to improve the district. I'm really pleased to have somebody like Google being a major anchor in that area. I think not only for that part itself, but there is the pull-on effect as well, where if you've got somebody of that stature, it attracts other people of equivalent stature, and that's got to be good for the district and for the regeneration of various areas of employment. And I completely agree. I do not want to be spending money from asset sales to break up holes in the budget. That doesn't make sense. What it does make sense is to make use of the flexibility that it gives us to do things at the right time. And we've already heard about the paper coming forward to Cabinet in February of Fit for the Future, which is really what this is about, looking at a council that we will be able to make sure that we can get through, says he, touching wood strongly, a series of budget cycles that are not as challenging as last year and this year has been for the organisation. And that's partly why as well we need to make sure that we do the appropriate rent rise in the HRA so we can get the buildings at the right level, and why also we need to make sure that we do take the council tax rise so we've got the base for going forward. I've said before in terms of staff salaries being a cost 5% increase of around about 1.5 million. A 3% increase is somewhere around about 250 to 300k. That's a big gap in this. And if you've gone back and didn't take that, your next gap is even bigger. We can't be in that position. We have to get this right. But we have an opportunity now with a great company coming into the district to make it smoother.
Okay, Councillor Heap, have yours next hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a thing on page 11 which, in terms of income, it says other contributions, but there's no detail on what that is. So is that a repeatable thing? Is that something we can rely on in the future? And the other question I have is along the lines of assumptions of income. There's reference in this budget to Qualis contribution on the loans that are given to it. But last year we were told that the actual return on loans given to Qualis was significantly less than 1%. So is what we're seeing in this budget less than 1%, or is that a hopeful assumption again?
So what we said last year was, as you go forward, with the high interest rates, and therefore the high interest rate in the Public Works Loan Board, the margin on those newer loans was coming down to below 1%. Most of Qualis's loans have been issued before that squeeze, and therefore we had a higher loan rate to interest ratio, and that's why we've got that money coming in there. So it's not a changed assumption. We do expect, and we've looked at this in terms, particularly in terms of the medium-term financial plan, the likely changes both in loan rates and interest rates going forward over the next 4 to 5 years. And we obviously do, like the rest of the market, expect those rates to fall and fall in the fairly near future. So we're looking at things like that, and that will then give us the ability to have a slightly larger than 1% margin on the loans we give to Qualis. I was looking on page 11 for the other contributions. I think I'll pass over to Mr. Small for those ones because I can't actually remember what they are.
Thank you, Chair. No, actually, if I'm honest with you, I can't remember either. I'd usually turn at this point to my erstwhile compatriot, Mr. Hartgrove, who happens to be in Colchester tonight going through their budget scrutiny process. So I am unable to provide you an answer this evening on that one, but more than happy to come back tomorrow with a breakdown of that, if that's okay. Sure.
Okay. Councillor McIver, you've got a question.
Thank you, Chairman, and I would echo the points made by members, and particularly to recognise the Cabinet Member for Finance, who is a consistent attendee of Overview and Scrutiny, and I think that is very important considering the time, and we all know the serious nature of this budget. I just had 2 points, if I may. In fact, firstly, I would just like to point out that with Essex Police now having the greatest amount of police officers ever in its history since it was formed, I think it opens the door now for us as members and as an authority to work with the police in a slightly different way. It's been an absolute luxury to have our own in-house police officers, and as the ward member who I think secured the first conviction from our, I personally didn't, but the officers secured in North Weald of a burglary, not only a conviction but a custodial sentence for the perpetrators, goes to show that they worked, and it was a fantastic opportunity when we had it. But, you know, I think it's fair to say that we can, as councillors and as a council, work differently with Essex Police to improve that productivity and keep it coming. With regards to citizens' advice, my only query is something without no commitment required, but certainly just to listen to my concern would be if we remove, if there are people within our community that aren't able to access citizens' advice for whatever reason, are we then looking at increased volumes to our own contact centre, and can that create a cost? Or do we then risk that service, which we've made some real progress on in terms of its efficiency and customer service outcomes and KPI outcomes? Do we then run the risk of some of that work being undone? Just a comment, nothing to I don't feel I need a response on that. The real matter I did want to point out was the Youth Council's budget for its projects. We all know from the Youth Council's performance here to our own committee that they do an excellent work, and I know that this council doesn't need to recognise it because we do at every opportunity, and the Youth Council have our wholehearted support. However, to me, having the Youth Council budget reduced or parts of it removed for projects is almost like investing in a really good vehicle but then not the fuel to make all of the journeys. And considering it is a small amount of money in the scheme of things, that would just be something that I would look to consider. I know that the Youth Council, and they probably don't get enough recognition for this, they pull in a lot of their own funding, and I think that is an achievement. My slight concern on their productivity would be, I think that extra money they pull in should be able to do extra things, and that's part of the motivation to do it. I think when that starts to become relied on, I think there's just a slight fear that that could actually make it, if those organisations then stop bringing that money, where does that leave our Youth Council? And I think we know that the work that the Youth Council do actually is a lot of prevention, and actually I think in the longer term that's an investment that saves us a lot of money later on. So again, just the two comments I have, but you know, as members have said, I have a huge amount of admiration for the team for the challenging circumstances we found ourselves in. I just would hate for us to invest so much in our Youth Council, but perhaps over a small amount of money, tie their hands on what they can achieve.
Can I just reassure Councillor McIver that I've listened to what he's got to say?
Okay. Councillor Aniket Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I think everyone on this committee appreciates how difficult it's been to get us to a position where we've got a balanced budget here in front of us. But I think, you know, when we look at the budget, we're looking at it in isolation for 24-25. But I think it mustn't be lost, actually, that because this council has always been forward-thinking in terms of looking at how we can generate additional revenue. I'm particularly thinking around the asset management strategy that was adopted a few years back, but also as well around the formation of Qualis and looking at seeing how we as a council can be doing things more efficiently as well, so that our residents are getting better value for money from the services that we offer. And I think looking at the work that we've done as a council, particularly over the last 4 years, through those COVID years as well, mustn't be lost in how we've managed to get to where we are now. The situation could have been far worse than what it actually is for our residents. And I think we should, you know, I appreciate that tough decisions have had to be made, but these decisions could have been far worse had we not been as prudent and as forward-thinking as we've been over the last few years.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Patel. I mean, that's completely accurate. I mean, if we go back and look at a number of the things that we've done in our asset portfolio, we know that over the past year and a bit, while Qualis has been looking after it, we've actually moved better to a proper commercial approach to our commercial property. There was a period not that long back where we as a council did not do that very well, and we missed rent reviews, and it's caused a problem. And people have had the benefit, businesses have had the benefit of that for a number of years, which is now making, obviously, as we have to get back to the right rents, painful at the time, but they've had the benefit of it for 5-10 years. Going a little bit further back, if we hadn't been foresighted and put in place the Epping Forest Shopping Park, that is a significant chunk of revenue that comes in that helps this. Qualis has been mentioned already, the money that comes in from there. So we're regularly doing things to try and make sure that in the years down the line, we will see the benefit from that.
Okay. The next name I have on the list is Ian Hadley, Councillor Ian Hadley.
Chair, well, considering what's been just said, this may seem a dumb question, but I'm still going to answer it. Epping Leisure Centre, £8 million in the next financial year. Presumably that's coming from a Public Works Loan Board loan at a reasonable rate, maybe 4.5%. Has anybody considered if there's any mileage for deferring some of that revenue payment to the Public Works Loan Board and using it for something else, like keeping the police, for instance?
Chairman, thank you. Councillor Hadley, there is no such thing as a dumb question. Fortunately, from my point, only dumb answers. No, we have looked in great depth at what we can do and where it makes sense to borrow, where it makes sense to borrow at the right time, what it's sensible to do. The Epping Sports Centre is a commitment that we have made. It's a capital commitment rather than a revenue commitment. Yes, there are costs from borrowing, but there are also costs from keeping a piece of land being undeveloped for a period of time. So we do look and factor all that in. When we look at things like the revenue compared to the borrowing, it's something that Mr Small and I talk about on a regular basis to make sure that we're optimising that for the council. So it is something we've looked at. It's something that we don't think is the right thing to do, but it's not a stupid question.
Next one I have on the list, who's joined us virtually, is Councillor Rose Brooks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of things that I'd like to reiterate, really, at risk of sort of repeating perhaps what I did say in the meeting in December, but I think you've looked carefully at things again. Firstly, I do welcome the fact that we're going to spend some money from the HRA on improving our housing stock. We've already done some things, particularly down in Lambs Farm, and it's great to see initiatives like the new roof on the Spinney in Loughton, which is something that's happened in the last couple of years. Just to reiterate that I do feel if there's any way, those reductions to the CAB, they've done some fantastic initiatives on Limes Farm, Waltham Abbey Leisure Centre recently, which they've reached out to a new audience of people with need. These are relatively small amounts, and as Councillor Whitehouse has said, a year's time, a bit more time, a bit more notice. CAB really are running on a shoestring, and it's similar for Voluntary Action Epping Forest. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. My question's about item 73 on page 52, which is community health and wellbeing. It talks about a reduction in community activity, and it's a bit sort of vague as what exactly is being reduced, but it talks about the Crucial Crew project and school holiday programmes. All those are very valuable, and I think a lot of them are funded by external grants. So, I hope that's going to continue. These officers seem very good at getting those community grants to come in. But Crucial Crew is really important for young people. I'd just like a bit more information on what exactly is being reduced in community activity.
A restricted one with that question.
It is, I think it's in the restricted pages.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Can you just, I got a feeling that what Councillor Whitehouse has raised may be a restricted No? No.
Page 52. Page 52,
Page 52.
item 73.
Right, okay.
My iPad's died on me, so I'm happy for Jen to answer if you want to. I'm just trying to think of...
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I think we've looked across the board at some of the activities we do, particularly around the summer programme, for example. So we did a review of the activities that we put on last summer in the holidays for children across the district, and the attendance of some of those. And we're not getting rid of all of those, but what we are doing is optimising those which are the most popular and bring the most benefit to those people across the district. So some of those will reduce, some of those will be kept, but some of those will get reduced, particularly in the summer programme, but also other points of school holidays. So those are the things particularly that we've looked at. In terms of Crucial Crew, at the moment, the proposal in the budget is that we would stop the delivery of Crucial Crew.
If there are no other questions, I think the points have been made to... Oh, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have another question, but it's in the restricted bit. So will we go to that next? Is that what you're doing, or are you wrapping this bit up?
If there are no other questions in the unrestricted section, which there doesn't appear to be, then I think we probably have to go into restricted. Sorry? So I have to say that we've got to exclude the press and the public.
Is there a form of words you have to read out properly?
Is there a form of words for that?